Today we're going to be analyzing and going through the primary results from the states of Michigan, Missouri, Kansas, and Washington. So the first state we're starting off with is the state of Michigan, and this one had some very interesting results. A state that went for Bernie Sanders back in 2016 failed to nominate a progressive on the Democratic side. I remember last night a couple of the candidates were leading in a couple of these counties, but also if we look down here, the purple are all counties won by Gretchen Whitmer. There is not a single county won by any other candidate. This looks like the map what should have looked like for Hillary Clinton back in 2016 if the polling was correct. Gretchen Whitmer got over that 50% mark at 52.1%. Abdul El-Sayed, who was endorsed by Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez endorsed him. A couple of other progressives, not many notable figures at this point, were endorsing Abdul El-Sayed. Sri Thanedar didn't even really get up there, but still, the fact that Gretchen Whitmer got over 50%, which means that even if Sri Thanedar was not even in the race, she still would have won this primary. She got 52% of the vote. Abdul El-Sayed only got 30%. This is not a good showing for progressive candidates across the United States. Okay, Michigan should have been an area where they could have won. Michigan was a state that went for Bernie Sanders back in 2016 in the Democratic primary. But now looking at the governor's race, it seems like they've inched back and went to a centrist, more Hillary Clinton type Democrat. Not in terms of, scandals or things like that, but compared to Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton was a little bit more to the right. On the Republican side, Bill Schuette won with over 50% of the vote at 50.7%. Not that much of a contested race here. He won by over 25%. Gretchen Whitmer won by 22%. So right now, it doesn't look so good for progressive candidates. They really thought this was their time to shine, especially in a state like Michigan, going into the governor's race. But it looks like at the end of today, she sweeped the entire state. There was not a single pocket for progressive support for, I don't even know what he represents, to be completely honest with you, but still, the centrist Democrat still lives in Michigan, and it's very interesting to say the least that she was able to carry every single county. When this race should have been extremely close, it was a blowout. Interesting. The United States Senate race, Debbie Stabenow, of course, wins her race, uncontested there. John James was expected to win, but it did get closer than I personally expected. Over in House District 1, no Democratic opposition. House District 2, two uncontested primaries. A lot of uncontested primaries in these races, and it doesn't show the vote count. But House District 3, 62,000 votes on the Democratic side, 55,000 votes here. Keep in mind, there are more votes on the Democratic side, which doesn't show the best standing for the GOP in terms of statewide races here. Same thing as you might expect. Certain candidates winning. Here we have an incumbent who won against his opponent, 81,000 votes, 81,641 on the Republican side, 81,812 on the Democratic side. So more turnout amongst Democrats, not a good sign for this incumbent. 94,000 on this side for House District 9, 53,000 House District 10. Over here, 90,000 votes for House District 11 and 87,000 votes on the Republican side. Not the best news for the GOP. Nothing to talk about there. And then not two incumbents, obviously, two uncontested races. Now we've pretty much covered Michigan, pretty much not necessarily the best news for progressives, but also there isn't the best news for parts of the GOP. Josh Hawley easily defeated all of his opponents in the Republican primary here. There was a point where Austin Peterson was expected to get second, and some people even thought this race could get close. Austin Peterson got 8.3% of the vote. Tony Monetti got 9.8% of the vote. Josh Hawley got 58.6% of the vote. He beat Austin Peterson by over 50% of the vote in a field of candidates very, very long. All right. So that means Josh Hawley never should have gotten over 50%. Austin Peterson should have came in a close second according to, a number of political pundits. This is not a good showing for the different type of the GOP. It looks like Josh Hawley, currently the establishment type GOP candidate, is defeating those outsider, not Trump-like necessarily, but outsider GOP candidates. Okay, Claire McCaskill easily won her Democratic primary, wasn't contested whatsoever. Nobody really focused on that. She swept every county. But on the Republican side, Josh Hawley defeated every single one of his opponents by considerable amounts. Every one of them except for one by 50%. All right, so Austin Peterson A lot of people wanted him to win. Libertarian presidential candidate going into the Republican primary, had a lot of support. What happened? That's the question that really we should be asking, because Josh Hawley got 58.6%, and somehow Austin Peterson got 8.3%. Whether it's backlash towards an Austin Peterson type candidate or just Missouri itself becoming more of a stronghold for establishment Republicans, that's not a good look for candidates who are trying to replicate what Austin Peterson did in terms of, support. I've seen on Austin Peterson's social media, he seemed pretty confident about the primary. And then that's why I genuinely was surprised, because typically a candidate knows when they're going to lose. Nobody expects to win a race where there's already a candidate who's rated as safe winning. That wasn't the best look for his type of campaign. The Libertarian turned Republican running in a statewide election doesn't look so good. But in the House districts, not much to see except for the House District 2. More votes on the Democratic side than the Republican side. Very interesting, considering there's not even a contested primary on the Democratic side, as there should have been on the Republican side. But here, the Republicans clearly outnumber Democrats in that district. See if we can find another one here as well. 105,000 votes compared to 30,000, not flipping anytime soon. But that's all we need to focus on in the state of Missouri. I'm not covering any ballot initiatives, things like that in this video. Kansas, Laura Kelly wins her Democratic primary, but that wasn't really what we needed to talk about. We needed to talk about the Republican primary in the state of Kansas. All right, Chris Kobach has 40.6% of the vote. Jeff Collier has 40.5%. Keep in mind, Jeff Collier is the incumbent governor of the state of Kansas. After Sam Brownback left, Jeff Collier came into power, and he has 40.5%. He is currently behind Chris Kobach. So this race is going to get very, very close. I do think it'll go into a recount with 100% of precincts reporting. Chris Kobach currently leads by 0.1%. Less than 300 votes divide the two candidates. All right, less than 200 actually. Jeff Collier has 40.5%. Keep that in mind. He's the incumbent. There's no way a race like this should have been close for an incumbent governor, but it is. So it looks like the incumbent could actually lose the primary, and another candidate could go on to replace him later on. What a district that people want to focus on is House District 3. This race, people say, could get close. Kevin Yoder has 76,000 votes. The Republican primary has 76,000 votes. Sharice Davids wins her primary with 61,000 votes. Okay, House District 4. This is the first special election since the 2016 presidential election. Representative Ron Estes has 56,000 votes, which is more votes than the Democratic primary, which had 30,000 votes and 69,000 in total on the Republican side. So not good looks for the primary, for the turnout here for Democrats, but not super good for the Democrats in District 3, but does say the race could get a little bit closer. So Republican primary in the state of Kansas. And Washington, not much to look at here. All right, we see Maria Cantwell got 55.4%, and Suzanne Hutchinson got 23.8%, and then all the other candidates got less than 3%. So this will not be a contested race. Maria Cantwell outright getting more than 50% of the vote. In District 1, not a contested race whatsoever. District 2, not a contested race at all. Looking at the numbers, 7.6% for a Republican, 7.6% for an independent. House District 3, this race could get a little bit closer, but right now, if we look down here, it looks like the Democratic Party actually is at a better standing, considering that they combined, I believe, they have around the same amount as the Republicans. So you add 5.3 to Jamie Herrera, I don't know, I'm sorry. But you add them up and it gets around to 50%, and then you add it to the Democrats, they get around 50%. So still about even there. But I think this race could get closer, but also an incumbent does always have the, I guess, advantage in these type of races. I don't think they gave any results here. Weird. But there are only... Actually, they probably didn't, because there's only 2 candidates, so it didn't really matter. In House District 5, this race definitely could get close. If we're looking at these numbers, Lisa Brown got around the same amount as the incumbent Republican. In House District 6, not going to be a close race at all. Outright winning over 50%. House District 7, no results there. House District 8, the Republican candidate, right now at 43%, but it looks like if you take all the Democratic votes, they'll get around the same margins for the Democratic Party if you added it to a single candidate. And then House District 9, not much to see there. The Democratic incumbent getting over 50%, and the other contested races coming from 23% of votes for another Democrat. So expect around a 60% win for Adam Smith. And then House District 10, not much to see there either. So pretty much the main things we need to focus on is Michigan, Missouri's GOP primary, and then Kansas GOP primary, because those races are telling signs for members of both the Democratic Party and the GOP party. It seems like the establishment did very well last night in terms of winning races in Missouri, in Kansas, and then now in the governor's race in both of them, in the Republican and the Democratic primary, and also in the GOP primary. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below. I will see you all tomorrow.